All right, I want you all to go get paper and pencil. I want you to sit down. If you have a glass of wine, great. Bourbon might be better. But I brought him into the studio. He drove all the way from his office to come to Cincinnati to be in the studio. That is Scott Warrick. You've all seen his shows if you've been watching The Human Resource, and you know that he's a passionate guy. But boy, we're just gonna dice and slice over the next 2 weeks all these new DEI regulations. And that's why I want you to just take a deep breath and listen to this show and understand that we are going to support you as much as possible through this because this is almost chaotic, Scott.
Oh, that's the perfect. We're chaotic times 10. This is, all the last 10 years of hurricanes all brought together.
Well, and we thought we had a handle on it, and everybody was so enthusiastic. Look at all the billions of dollars that have been spent on DEI initiatives.
Oh, yes. And I'm going to tell you right now, because I was on your show last year and we were talking about this. I have been in DEI for 25 years. I have spoken all over the country on this stuff, 7 SHRM National Diversity Conferences. And let me tell you right now, I've spoken at 25, I think I stopped at 25 DEI conferences. And the last one was SHRM's 2023 Inclusion Conference. I have never in my life ever been to a conference where a speaker didn't get up and teach the attendees to do something illegal something that was stereotyping somebody, whether they're older people or white people or something. And now, and I've been saying for years, you got to keep this pendulum from going too far to the left because it's going to alienate a lot of people because that pendulum rarely swings to the middle. It's going to go to the far right. And what you're seeing now is exactly what I said was going to happen. And no, I will tell you, I am the biggest proponent of legal and non-stereotyping, non-bigoted, non-racist diversity programs. And what the president's executive orders have done and what the president's justice system is doing is, I will tell you right now, the goal is to eradicate DEI across this country. And we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want to throw the illegal stuff out and any of the racist stuff out. And so there's got to be a better solution. So no, if you are in the private sector, you absolutely have to know what the Department of Justice is doing and what these executive orders did, because I've got clients in the private sector right now that are getting letters that they've got to get rid of their DEI, and they're standing there like, what? I'm not part of the federal government. And I'm telling you, the President of the United States' arms are long, and chances are 90% of all of you or 80% of you listening to this, you're going to be affected by those executive orders, and you probably have no idea.
Well, and let's start from the beginning because I think sometimes what we don't want, and you're alluding to this, but I want to be real clear. Yeah. What we don't want to do is lock that whole DEI mentality and think that we're throwing everything out. We absolutely have to help our viewers. And we've talked about this on earlier shows.
Yeah.
Earlier shows. Develop a mindset and start retraining the individuals in your company or in your businesses that are doing this interviewing, who are establishing what the needs are in their department before they hire.
This is a stereotype. This is exactly. I'll date myself here. And if you don't know who this guy is, you got to Google him. If you have anything to do with civil rights, you got to know who Bull Connor was. Okay, he is the poster child of the evil sheriff, evil law enforcement. So I'm going to look at Bull Connor, this evil sheriff from the South, and I'm going to say, well, that's what all sheriffs are like. That's what all law enforcement is like. DEI, I will tell you, has to be re-engineered, and whenever I said it needed to be re-engineered, I got canceled. It was like I was trying to kill it. No, if you don't make it legal, and if you don't take the racist bigotry and stereotyping out of it, the government will cancel it for you. And not just that, but now You've got boycotts from the MAGA folks, from people who are still having their DEI, and you got boycotts. You got a boycott coming up from the far left, February 28th, boycotting all those companies that got rid of their DEI. So either way you turn, you're going to get smacked in the head. So you got to come up with that re-engineered alternative.
Yeah, and you've got to introduce it to your company in such a way that it doesn't look like anybody necessarily did anything wrong. We just need to just back up, take a deep breath, and refocus on what the needs of your business are. What are the skill sets? What are the competencies that you're looking for? And start rethinking how we were going about the recruiting process.
Oh my gosh, yes. And just a couple things right there, because anyone who is hiring employees these days, unless you've been living under a rock, it's hard to find people. Now, when I started off in my career back in the early 80s, you didn't even have to go looking for, like, you're picking apples. The apples were on the ground. For every single job, you had 10, 20, 30 applicants. And this will date me. I used to wait by the phone, hope I'd get a call, and you'd always show up early for your interview. But then the baby boomers since COVID in particular, have either died or they're decided to retire because I don't want to work my whole life and then die on a respirator. So guess what? Baby boomers have left the market like crazy. So as of the end of last year, there were 1.4 jobs for every unemployed person in this country who's actively looking for work. Now get that. There are 40% more jobs. You're not picking apples. You are sifting for gold. The people you're looking for do not exist. So let's take a business mentality that I want a diverse workforce and do what affirmative action was supposed to do back when Senator Hubert Humphrey wrote Title VII and backed up President Johnson's bid for affirmative action. Spread your net as wide as you can. And you will find people of all colors, all races, all whatever. And you will find qualified people. And I'll tell you right now, if you are going to be a racist and you're not going to hire someone because of their skin color or because of their gender or their religion, you're not going to be around. And I'll tell you, anybody listening to this, I don't care where you live, you could be in Alaska, you could be in New York City, drive through your city, and I promise you in the next 5 to 10 years, 10 to 20% of all those companies, they're not going to be there.
Well, and think of the impact. I mean, this is happening so fast. I think that everybody just needs to catch their breath and realize that we just flipped completely upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Though you and I have had a couple shows where we have started trying to rein people back and say, wait a minute, are you sure you're not using bias? Are you sure you're not being racist? Are you sure you're not making, you're a little too into the DEI? I just shook my head the other day when they were talking about the number of DEI people, the people who've created a career in DEI. How many of them are unemployed now?
Oh, yeah, they're doomed. And it's really funny because the same people who canceled me because, we've always gone through this. Well, first of all, you live in the city. I live in the city. I live in Columbus, Ohio. People don't think it's a city, but it really is. Okay, so I drive around a lot. I'm in rural Ohio, rural Indiana, rural Pennsylvania. This is why our polling doesn't work. Mm-hmm. You call somebody out in rural New York, they don't answer a poll. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you right now, they're mad, and it's really funny because I keep saying you can't have anything illegal. You can't do anything illegal. I've never seen a diversity program that was legal. And let me just give you an example. Okay, we are going to set up a mentoring program, and my own HR chapter did this type of program. Set up a mentoring program for all of your Black females, for all of your Black males, for all of your Latinos. That is illegal. It's as illegal as the day is long. It violates Title VII. And I usually get this look. It was on, I think, the front page of the New York Times this week. What do they mean, DEI being illegal? That's illegal. You are not allowed to do that stuff. And now I've got all these DEI people getting in touch with me, wanting to reform now that they're going to be unemployed. Mm-hmm. And all these consultants, they are getting shunned like as if they're selling little jars of bubonic plague.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, and there were some really interesting people who had great careers before DEI that jumped on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
And that's all they did: eat, sleep, and drink. Now, what are we going to do with them? Well, this is the way we wanted to have the show on this topic. You need to start. I pulled out a diversity policy out of a handbook the other day. I mean, it's seriously a whole paragraph on we're going to be diverse. I said, well, that's interesting because you have the EEOC policy
Right.
4 up. So why do we have to have both? And then, of course, this is all coming up. So
Yeah.
let's talk about what businesses need to be thinking about in terms of who their customers are and the impact.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, there's 2 big things here. One is the law. Okay. And quite frankly, let me just throw it out there real quick. If you work for the federal government, DEI, and anything that sounds like DEI, inclusion, equity, all those terms, they're dead. And if you are a government contractor, those are dead because you're going to get money from the government contractor. What is now happening, this always happened for years, if you are a contractor of a government contractor.
Oh, so it's starting to trickle down.
Oh, you betcha. Those fingers, it's like Guardians of the Galaxy and Groot. Okay, they just go on forever. And I'll give you a good example. I worked at a juice box company, aseptic juice boxes, which are really cool in Europe because they got little refrigerators. Okay, here we got refrigerators you could put 4 bodies into. Okay,
Yeah.
over there they got these little college refrigerators. And we make this aseptic juice box packaging where juice and milk doesn't have to be refrigerated.
Okay.
Very cool. Well, we didn't have any government contracts at all, but we had a government contract with Smucker's Jelly, who sells hundreds of millions of dollars of jelly to the military.
Oh.
Okay, so in our contract with Smucker's, it said you have to have an affirmative action plan or we can't do business with you. Now, the federal government, the military, made Smucker's put that in their contracts, and so we had to have it in ours, so we had to have an affirmative action plan. That is the exact same thing that's happening right now, and I have had no less than half a dozen calls from clients who are already getting their contracts who don't have any contracts with the government, but they do business with government contractors. And if they want to keep their cleaning contracts, if they want to keep their supplying contracts, you have to get rid of anything that even smells or looks like diversity, DEI, equity. So that's your legal side. And so 80% of you probably out there, if you do any business with a government contractor or the government, you got to get rid of this stuff right now because in those contracts, it says that you recognize and admit that this is a material fact. This is a material point in this contract. If you do it anyway, like I've got clients that say, well, can't we just change the name to collaboration? And that's called rainbowing.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like Ohio State changed theirs to, Office of Justice, okay, or something like this, okay? If you rainbow it and the government finds out and you sign that contract, you have made a false claim. It's the False Claims Act. And the United States government, and I will tell you right now, this administration will come after you and they will hang you from a sour apple tree. Okay? Triple damages.
Well, and let's go back to an earlier comment. If you've got a good, strong EEOC policy, you're good.
You're good.
We don't discriminate.
No.
We don't.
The two conflict. And that's where the illegality comes in.
Yeah.
And what this administration is saying is you've got to stop doing this. And that, of course, then goes into, okay, let's say I'm not a government contractor. I'm not a government contractor of a contractor of a contractor. I don't do any of that stuff. Target is, they got rid of everything. So the far right was thrilled to death. Those are your customers. So half your customers are happy.
Yeah.
The other half are really upset. And I'll tell you something else. If you're a publicly traded company, Target is now getting sued by the shareholders because their past practices were in fact illegal.
Oh my gosh.
I tell you, if you think, well, this doesn't affect me, wake up, pal. Okay. And now everybody's ears are up.
Yeah.
And so if an employee comes after you and you do have a government contract, the employee can get 15 to 30% of whatever the government gets out of you.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and so now
those numbers get big.
Oh, millions. It's like, you really going to stick it to your own company? Well, for $30 million? Yeah. That's like the lottery. And there are law firms all over this country that are open up.
Oh, yeah.
And they're changing their specialties. If you have an employee now who says, no, wait a minute, they're giving preferential hiring to this, or these people over here have a special program for mentoring, or they have a special tuition reimbursement, they're going to these attorneys. And I will tell you, the last one I saw a letter from one of my clients was they will settle this for $50,000. Otherwise, they're going to charge they're going to run your bill up to $150,000 or $200,000 to settle or to go to court.
Right.
I will tell you, I don't care if you have 4 employees and you are trying to be a good citizen and you've adopted diversity initiatives and you have a special program just for hiring whatever, some protected class. Okay, it's only a matter of time until someone blows the whistle on you.
Yeah.
And let me listen, you are licking the outlet. It's going to get you.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? You've all heard me say it a million times. It's training.
Yes.
We have now given you all this information of things that you should be looking for in your handbook, in your policies, in your practices, your language, how you speak, what you're doing in terms of your efforts of recruiting. But you got to get out there and work with your teams, because remember, they're the boots on the ground. They're 90% of HR.
Oh my gosh, yes. And understand, you're training your people, getting your culture. And that's what we'll talk about in the next show is, what do I do? Well, quite frankly, there is a very good solution that's given to you by the EEOC that you want to look at. Mm-hmm. But employees, biggest part of your budget, the people who actually do the work, very politically active these days.
Yeah.
And they're irreplaceable.
Remember, I've promoted this book on the show before. I want to remind you again, if you haven't read it, Living the 5 Skills of Tolerance. Scott he's done an incredible job with this book. But if you need some additional reading, you know where to get it. In the meantime, stay with us. Come back next week, and we'll continue this conversation here on The Human Resource.